I'm not going to mention that, so please don't ask. That is like hidden away on the internet somewhere. Hey guys, welcome back to the second part of the Q&A. The last one got pretty long, so I thought I'd just continue it here. So let's get straight to it. Okay, the next question is by Amna W. Khan. Top travel spots. Okay, so like the one that comes to mind straight away is my trip to Japan that I did like during my elective at medical school. I basically just like completely chilled there. That was the first ever trip that I took like solo. So for me to go from the UK to Japan on my own, not speaking a word of the language, that was a pretty big thing for me, but I really wanted to go. I think all my other friends had already planned their sort of, elective placements, and I was doing it really last minute, but I still wanted to go. So I was like, you know what? People say that traveling alone is actually like a really good experience, so I'm just gonna go for it. I went to Tokyo, which was obviously sick. There's so many different districts there, so many different things. It's like super busy, and I can't really compare it to any other developed country that I've been to just because it is so different. I would also say I also went to Kyoto, which was like super chilled, super laid back. I didn't know that it was just like some sort of like square city surrounded by hills on each side, which makes it look so beautiful. But also Pakistan, like I'm Pakistani if you didn't know already, and the place is absolutely beautiful. I haven't even seen some of the places in the north, but the country is beautiful, the food is amazing, the culture is sick. Like I definitely need to go there again. Also in terms of like holidays that I go like very regularly, I would say Turkey is like really affordable. It's very close, and I've never had a bad time in Turkey. I love the people, I love the food. They've got water sports. I've been to like the coast of Marmaris and Istanbul, which I went recently, which was just like beautiful. And finally, two places I've been for like sort of extreme sports, if you will. Tenerife, I went with my friend just for surfing. I went there literally just to surf. Only problem was there's no halal meat, so as a Muslim I find it very difficult to eat like meat there, but usually that's not a problem. I usually just go for like fish or vegetarian stuff, but they don't like fish. The whole island just doesn't like fish, so I even went to McDonald's and asked them for like a fillet of fish, and they just don't even serve it because there's no demand there. So I ended up having like super salty chips after a session in the sea, which was like, so it was basically like salt overload. So that was a bit of a bummer, but yeah, Tenerife was sick. I also went to Bulgaria to do some snowboarding recently. My friend is Bulgarian, so he kind of like showed me the ropes. He was a nice little tour guide. I think he'd been there before. So yeah, snowboarding, that was the first time I went. Amazing experience, I'll definitely go again. Okay, the next question is from Ella the Explorer again. So she asked, if not medicine, what would you have studied? Okay, so I just want to clarify that I had no idea I wanted to study medicine. Like, I wasn't one of those people who knew they were going to be a surgeon from the age of 5 years old. That wasn't me. But also like when I was coming to apply for, university, then I started to think, you know what, medicine has so many benefits. I wouldn't mind being a doctor in the way that I love like seeing people. I love actually like complex challenges. The idea of like, leading a team at some point in time, working with a team. There's so many different variables, and every different specialty within medicine offers so many different things. So like, and even with a degree in medicine, you can go off and do so many other things, even if you decide to leave clinical medicine. So it didn't really feel like a big jump for me to actually apply for medicine. But now, having sort of reflected on what I've been paying attention to for the last few years and where my sort of interests lie, I would say if I were to go with something similar to medicine in the way that it involves a craft, it involves like being a perfectionist in some way, but also having a creative side, I would probably go with like architecture or something like that. I think that would be pretty cool. I would also consider marketing, just because for the last couple of years I've been studying marketing a lot, especially with all the businesses that I've sort of tried to, like nurture. I realized that like if I want to try and sell something to the world, then I know my product will be good because that's like what I focus on. But actually selling it, I'm not a very good salesperson by nature. So I think anyone who wants to go into business really has to study marketing. And along the process of studying marketing, I realized, you know what, this is actually really interesting. It's got a big element of like human psychology. So that appeals to me because like as a medic, I like to think about just what other people, like how other people are thinking. And it's very like data like orientated, so that also applies to the sort of doctor in me. And finally, I would say that there's not many like rules and regulations. I don't mean this in a way that you can get away with anything, but you can be as creative as you want with marketing, which I really like. Okay, so the final question is by Alize. What makes you confident? How do you appear so confident in everything you do? Tips. Okay, so first thing you need to know is it actually took me a long time to even consider starting like a blog, like a public Instagram. It took me a long time to actually take the jump to actually create a newsletter and put my writing out there into the world. And the biggest jump was for me to actually make this YouTube channel. And like I was saying this to my friends recently as well, like if you look at some of my earlier videos, actually any one of the recent videos, I am really shy. Like I'm still very camera shy. It's still super awkward for me to sit in front of a camera and talk to it as if it's like somebody else. And also because like you have all these thoughts in your head of, you're just imagining what people are seeing yourself as, so you become super self-conscious and you forget your lines. Like riffing at the top of my head is almost impossible. I feel like I'm getting a little bit better at it. I'm sort of doing it now, but I think with time everything becomes a bit easier. And one thing I always made sure to do was to throw myself in the deep end and just sort of push myself to feel uncomfortable, especially with like, say for example, public speaking. Every time I give a little lecture at my university or host a workshop or something like that, it can either go one or two ways. Either I feel like I just sort of get into the flow of things, or I just start stuttering and it becomes like a downward spiral. Apparently, like it's not always as bad. It doesn't always appear as bad to, you know, whoever's attending, but to me it feels like, damn, like you really flopped that. Like people are all watching you, you kind of crumbled, you were stuttering, things like that. And that can only be improved by you actually making yourself do that again and again. So I always force myself to take up public speaking opportunities, forcing myself to make videos like this now and actually put myself out there into the world, which will hopefully improve my confidence. And yeah, I would say the things that you even do see are usually like a highlight reel. I'm trying to be a bit more transparent and like just put out videos that even if they have a bit of stuttering in there, if they have a bit of hesitation, like a lot of my videos do have, I'll still put them out because it's all part of like the sort of process of growth. And so hopefully, yeah, I might become this confident person that you might think me to be like in the future. But at the moment, it's honestly just like a highlight reel of the like good moments where it appears that I'm confident, if that makes sense. Also, I have to tell you that everything I'm doing now, like it took me years to build up the confidence to do so. Like I've probably been thinking about making a YouTube channel like of myself since I was probably like 14 or 15. I would see people and I would like on YouTube and I would think, you know what, these guys have a specific like the X factor or a YouTube factor about them that just like makes them eligible to make videos and makes them confident and things like that. I never even considered putting myself out there. Actually, I considered it, but I was just so nervous. I knew that I would have this like anxiety about being like seen by the public and just putting myself out there. So this actually wasn't something that, you know, that I switched on and I thought, you know what, today I'm going to make a YouTube channel, I'm going to make a newsletter and put all my blog posts out there into the world. It's actually taken years to build up. Okay, so the next question is by Anika.I4. Question is, productive things to do in your 20s. So number one, I would say the biggest thing which I really missed out on was reading books. Okay, like I only started doing this in like the second to last year of medical school, and oh my god, when I say that, reading has actually like shot me forward in terms of my thinking, in terms of what I'm achieving, because basically I was only reading to try and help my business at first, but in the process of doing so, I came across all these self-help books which have helped me in all the things going on around me and day-to-day life. I think I would confidently say that in my final year medical school, having studied business and like clarified my like the way that I think really helped me in like how I studied for my exam, how I approach studying. So it made me a lot more efficient in that, even though I wasn't specifically studying how to study better, if that makes sense. And finally, I would say invest in your sleep. Your sleep is so important. I only really realized this recently. I've always been a sort of heavy sleeper. I've always been someone who just naturally prioritizes their sleep because I'm a bit of a sloth. But having read Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, it just opened my eyes to how important sleep really is. There really is a reason for why we naturally sleep like a third of our lives. That is if you're sleeping 8 hours. And finally, I would say invest in your health, when I was younger, like all the opportunities for getting involved in sports like football, swimming, like table tennis, that sort of thing, like I was involved in everything. But now, like, it feels like a bit of a chore to try and arrange going to the gym, going and playing sports, arranging all your friends to get together to do something like that. But now it's more important than ever, because if I'm not doing it now, like I'm not going to be doing it when I'm 30, I'm not going to be doing it when I'm 35, 40, and that's not going to be good for the long run. So I'm actively trying to create a system where I'm definitely getting some sort of exercise or a gym routine in like a few times a week. Okay, so the final question is by Maz Lumba Chechi, I think. This is Maz, he's one of my friends I've met like the other day. Super cool guy, he's got a YouTube channel as well. Check out his vlogs, proper G. Okay, so his question is, what do you love about your creative process? First of all, I would say I love getting lost in what I do. So I think one of the earliest times where I realized like I was being lost in something, like I was in that state of flow where you just forget how many hours have gone. You're just so absorbed in what you're doing. You don't need none of that, 20-minute Pomodoro timer thing. You're just literally like so stuck in, you can just go for hours. And that was probably when I was a teenager. I had a YouTube channel for gaming. I'm not going to mention that, so please don't ask. That is like hidden away on the internet somewhere. But I basically was a gamer for like several years, and just editing those videos, playing with sound effects, playing with these complex softwares, I was really like absorbed in it. And I would have sessions where I would be doing that for like hours on end. My mum would be calling me to come and have lunch or dinner, and I would just be like, oh, just an extra 5 minutes, just an extra 10 minutes. And that's when I first like reflected on the fact that, wow, like I really like doing this. And the second time that really happened was when I started creating my business, when I was creating websites, when I was learning about how to, be an entrepreneur. That's another time where I realized, wow, like I'm getting that same feeling again. And like, say for example, now having a YouTube channel, actually putting myself out there and being creative again, having that creative outlet has really opened up that sort of state of flow again into my life. I think one of the best things about having a newsletter, having a creative outlet like a YouTube channel, is that there's no real rules. Like there's so much creative freedom, which is something that I'm not really afforded as a doctor. So obviously, like being a doctor is not only is it a science, but it's a bit of an art as well. Like if 5 patients come in with a similar sort of presentation, like 5 different doctors might go about a different way of treating them, sort of go different ways, but they'll all end up roughly at the same sort of end goal or end point. But there's only so much creative freedom you have there. Whereas when I make a YouTube video, like I can talk about whatever I want, I can edit it in whichever way I want, I can use whatever music I want, I can do it on my own schedule. And having all that sort of freedom to think on my own terms is something that like I just really love having that as part of my life. How was your journey to medical school, and what did you get in GCSEs and A-Levels? So for my GCSEs, I got 7.5 or 8.5 A stars, and the rest were A's. I can't remember why exactly there was a half of a GCSE. I think one of the GCSEs didn't really count as a full one. I can't really remember. And I think like 3 A's. For A-Levels, I didn't do 3. I actually took an extra one. I think the reasoning behind that was, number one, my older brother did it, so I was just like, might as well do that as well. But also because when you apply for medicine, I think back then the offers were sort of around, if you did 3 A-Levels, you'd have to get like an A star AA, whereas if you did 4 A-Levels, you just needed 4 A's. So that reduced the risk of me needing an A star. But I ended up getting 2 A stars and 2 A's. I did biology, maths, chemistry and geography. That was like my extra one, which was quite fun. However, with the UCAT, or the UKCAT as it used to be called, I scored 802.5, so that was a really good score. I was like super happy because of that. Okay, the next question is on the UCAT. So any tips for UCAT study? This question is by Messiah. So yeah, I do have a lot of tips. I used to teach UCAT, or UKCAT as it used to be called, for like several years. I kind of stopped doing it because I started focusing my attention on like other projects that I was working on. But I did actually have a teaching company where I taught UCAT for like several years, and I taught like with other courses as well. So I don't want to go into too much depth. If you guys want a separate UCAT video, I don't know how many of you guys are actually sitting the UKCAT and how how worthy it is for me to actually make a whole video on that. But I would say number one is just simulate the real exam as much as you can. So practice online, Medify is probably the best resource out there. When I was sitting the UCAT, like Medify had just started, so it was just sort of like in the works. They didn't have that many questions as they do now. But even then, the similarity between their questions and the real life questions were like amazing. And the way they set up the platform so that it like imitates the exact platform that you're going to sit in the real exam really helps, because it's not the same doing it on paper. Always make sure that you can get as much practice as you can doing it online, just like it would be in the real exam. Secondly, you gotta just familiarize yourself with every aspect of the exam. I think most students do this because there's no manual on how to sit the UCAT. I mean, you can go to courses and things, but the fact is that there's no syllabus for it. Likely that your college or your school probably won't be the best in terms of helping you, you know, achieve a good score. So largely, like, my revision was really independent. No one else could really help me but myself. I became like really switched on. I was like really panicky, and so I tried to find out as much as I could about the exam in every different way and try and study each individual section, find out the different types of questions that they can ask. And the UCAT is different in the way that in a normal exam you would try to answer every question, whereas in the UCAT you can actually skip questions or just leave them out completely. I mean, obviously guessing them, but you can still achieve like a maximum score. The UCAT is supposed to make you do something called triaging, which means that you leave behind the really difficult stuff so that you can focus your attention on the more easier stuff. And I think that's where a lot of students get caught out, especially if they haven't practiced as much on the UCAT. So definitely like familiarize yourself with the exam, see which questions take you longer than the others, and start to tell yourself, you know what, next time I'm gonna maybe leave these to the end and I'm gonna focus more on the easier ones. And finally, I would say get to grips with all the different keyboard shortcuts and just make sure that you know how to play around with like flagging questions, selecting them, pressing next, loading up the like little calculator. Little keyboard shortcuts actually save you a lot of time in the long run. I felt like it just made me feel much more efficient doing the exam, and I only learned those keyboard shortcuts in the last like 2 weeks or something, but I try to incorporate as soon as possible. So if I were you and you've got like 4 or 5 weeks to practice, I would start doing that straight away and try to do very minimal like on paper exercises. There are some really good books out there, but I would say online courses are probably the best way to go. But yeah, if you'd like to see more on the UCAT or UCAT, I can recommend some good resources, or if you'd like me to actually teach my own course again, maybe on an online version, let me know. Okay, so the next question is about my choice of university. The question's by Haida Olive. Was King's College your first choice of uni? So no, it wasn't. So when I was applying, I applied for King's and Barts. Those were my two sort of UCAT unis, which because they look at the UCAT exam. And then I applied for Imperial and UCL. These are another two London universities, and they looked at the BMAT. Now, when I sat the UCAT or UCAT, like, you find out your score straight away, and then you apply to those universities knowing your score already, which is really helpful. But there wasn't an option for the BMAT to actually sit the exam and find out your result before you actually applied. So I had to sit the exam before I applied, but I never found out my result until after I had actually applied. So if I had known that my result would have got me cut off at Imperial and UCL, I probably wouldn't have put it down. But the reason why I probably would have gone with Imperial is that my older brother actually studied there, and he's only 1 year above me, so it just sort of made sense for me to sort of follow in his footsteps. I wasn't too keen on, you know, going a whole different route, and I would have gone wherever, to be honest. So it just sort of made sense that Imperial, my brother's already one step ahead, he might help me from his experience. But once I got rejected from Imperial and UCL, then out of King's and Barts, I was like really set on King's. I just loved the location, I loved the open day, I just loved the sort of the vibe around there. So I was like, you know what, yeah, I'm probably gonna go for King's. But that being said, I'm so glad I chose King's. Like, comparing with some of the other universities, I think that just like socially, like culturally, religiously, like there's so many different factors that meant that I had like such a nice group of friends. There was so many, like a variety of people that I've met from like all over the world, from different specialties as well, who were studying different things. And yeah, if I could go back and choose again, I probably would have gone with King's anyway. So yeah, that sums up most of the questions that I received from my Q&A. Thank you so much if you sent me the question. If you're interested in personal growth, medicine, entrepreneurship, please check out my newsletter. I send it out once a week. I spent a lot of time on it. So yeah, let me know what else you'd like to see. Please subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff. And I will see you in the next video.